Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the debut country album from Brandy Clark, titled 12 Stories. So this week we return once again to country music, but this time we're not going to be talking about the mainstream country scene or the widening split between bro country and traditional country, which only continues to widen as days go by. This time we're going to be talking about what some have called underground country, the music that doesn't quite reach the airwaves these days, or doesn't really have the same level of pop crossover success. And here's where I'm going to actually have to confess something. Outside of the mainstream country charts and outlaw country, because I love outlaw country, I don't really have a huge amount of knowledge regarding country acts that never really charted outside the mainstream. Acts that the average country music fan will have never heard of and will likely never hear. As I stated in my special comment regarding the state of modern country music, I put forward that due to the majority of critics ignoring underground country completely, there really isn't a good avenue for country music fans like myself to go digging for this sort of material. Honestly, if it weren't for the recommendations from the comments, thanks a lot guys, and the regular visits to the website savingcountrymusic.com, I wouldn't have the slightest clue of where to start. And as I said in the past, when the critical press unjustifiably ignores country music, not only does it damage the critical dialogue, be an artistic dialogue as well, but it also ignores lesser known but potentially excellent country acts from garnering the critical acclaim they deserve and could potentially parlay into chart success. And as pretty much the only country music critic on YouTube, I guess I can make it part of my duty to revise this in some way, shape, or form. So let's talk about Brandy Clark. For those of you who don't know, she's a singer-songwriter who has co-written a fair number of country songs that I like, including Follow Your Arrow from Casey Musgrave's album Same Trailer Different Park, which might be one of my favorite songs of the year. She's better known probably for co-writing the excellent Mama's Broken Heart from Miranda Lambert, and most notably for co-writing the Southern Gothic and absolutely hysterical Better Dig 2 for the band Perry. Reportedly, she has a taste for the seedy underbelly of country folk, and speaking as a fan of outlaw country and somebody who digs the hell out of the Southern Gothic taste on Americana, I was really psyched for this debut release, titled 12 Stories. I was less enthused by the fact that she signed to a very small record label, with the only other signee being Neil McCoy, but hey, baby steps. So, how does 12 Stories end up turning out? Is this going to be a smash hit for her? Well, I don't think it's going to be a smash hit, but it is pretty damn awesome all the same. It wasn't exactly surprising that 12 Stories was superb and a great listen, but goddamn, it was a welcome relief and definitely a very solid album that I enjoyed a great deal. Without a question, it's recommended. Like, you guys can all go out and buy this album right now, and you all should, by the way. But I think the next step is asking why it works as well as it does. And yet, at the same time, it's just a shade behind Casey Musgraves for me personally. And believe it or not, that's not a value judgment, because Brandy Clark is targeting something of a very different audience with her album, and you can tell that it manifests throughout every single facet of her work. And look, considering Casey Musgraves did drop one of the best albums of the year, the fact that Brandy Clark is only a few shades behind her, that's high praise indeed. But look, I gotta explain this a little bit further. Brandy Clark does share a lot of the best traits in common with Casey Musgraves. To be sure, the songwriting is superb, cutting, and unafraid to attack controversial subject matter head on. And like Casey Musgraves, she has a solid element of populism that lends her songs a ton of emotional weight. You can actually believe that the material that she's bringing forward comes from a real place, and possibly real experiences. And even if it's not, Brandy Clark does a fantastic job selling it all the same. She makes it sound believable. Her voice strays away from the occasional flighty tones of Casey Musgraves and harkens back to a deeper, richer alto that's more in line with one of my favorite female country singers of all time, Reba McEntire. And while Brandy Clark doesn't quite belt in the same way that Reba does, she does manage to capture that same rich, emotive delivery that made Reba so damn compelling, even when her songwriting wasn't always at the best. People tend to forget that. Reba was distinctly pop country throughout the 80s, and then she pivoted away from that. But it's not just in the vocals that Brandy Clark resembles Reba, it's also in the production and instrumentation, which shies away from the rollicking folk edges of Casey Musgraves and goes for something that's a little bit smoother and, dare I say, a little bit more mature sounding, driven by piano and the occasional bits of guitar. There are fewer rough edges on Brandy Clark's instrumentation, but there's still plenty of texture and hidden elements that I really liked. The fleeting harmonicas and fiddles, the occasional rumble of electric guitar in the background, or a fragment of a piano melody that really did stick with me. You can tell that the production isn't quite at the top of the line at points, but I'd argue it still works here. The biggest element of Brandy Clark's appeal is that she can sound relatable and normal, speaking to the average woman, and thus any production gimmicks would have come across as unnecessary, just clutter in the mix that's just not required here. And now we ought to come to the songwriting, which is incredibly solid for what it's trying to do. I could nitpick and say that there are a few dud rhymes that did draw me out of the experience, but more often than not, I could completely ignore those because Brandy Clark delivers so much more. It really helps her material that she has a bit of a wider focus with her subject material beyond just tackling the traditional problems of country music of today. Instead, going for cheating and tackling failing relationships and even pharmaceutical abuse in songs like Take a Little Pill. But most of her songs have a pretty small focus. I'll have a lot enough of this intimate detail to be believable as she sings about her target demographic. Women who might be a little bit older or married with kids or divorced. There isn't the same level of youthful exuberance that Kacey Musgraves brings to the table, but Brandy Clark isn't looking to go in that direction. She instead brings a fair amount of this quiet resignation, a desire for escape, but with enough maturity to know that escape doesn't always come in the form that you'd like it. Songs like Get High might raise eyebrows on the wild controversy circuit, but there has a very distinctive lived-in, tired feel to it that adds a lot of texture to the song regardless of the marijuana references, which, as I said, they really aren't that uncommon these days in country music. If I'm going to criticize her songwriting at all here, at least in terms of her songwriting topics, it'd probably be in a few of her failing/failed relationship songs. I'm not sure whether it's the delivery or the fact that the songs don't quite go as dark as they could or as I was hoping that they would, but songs like Get Crazy and Stripes, they just come across as a little bit goofy and a little bit over the top, which doesn't really fit well with the rest of her material, in my opinion. And the song that probably annoyed me the most was Illegitimate Children, which talks about couples hooking up and ends with the chorus, well, that's how illegitimate children are born. I don't know, I can get where the moralizing is coming from, but it still felt a little bit preachy to me, and it lacked the rich emotional context that made songs like She Thinks His Name Was John or The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Reba McEntire, and made those songs so damn heartbreaking and effective. Plus, it's the modern age. We have condoms and birth control. But these songs are certainly quite well written, and they are certainly passable enough, and they don't really do much to tarnish the album as a whole. And the fact that the album is still great as a whole does a lot to buoy it up. So in the end, I can't say that 12 Stories quite resonates with me on the same level as Kacey Musgraves' Same Trail, a Different Park did. But then again, I'm not entirely surprised by that. As much as I don't like using this excuse, it is an album aimed at a very different demographic. And I suspect that the little details and Brandy Clark's delivery will definitely hit well to that group. Plus, there's more than enough quality and effective emotional pathos in Brandy Clark's material, cultivated through her instrumentation, her vocals, and her lyrics, that I can still appreciate it and enjoy it. It has that spirit of populism, even though it isn't really aimed at me in the same way. For me, that's enough to earn Brandy Clark a very good 9 out of 10 and a very, very solid recommendation from me. If you're a fan of traditional country music and you're willing to try something new, I cannot recommend Brandy Clark's 12 Stories highly enough. And really, I have high hopes that she will have some success sooner rather than later. The bro country bubble is already pretty saturated, folks, and when it bursts, as it inevitably will, I'd love to see acts like Brandy Clark and Kacey Musgraves rise up to take its place. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. If there's anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, or if there's any other albums that came out this year that you want me to take a look at, I'd be sure to take a look. In other words, see you next time.